Hi, this is Lilia with the Help Yourself podcast, and today I'm delighted to have the beautiful soul that is Vida B, who is a family constellations therapist. Now, I had the absolute pleasure of joining in with Vida when she came to Barnmolloch Farm for our last retreat, and I was really astounded at what I saw happening with quite an incredible bunch of women, hugely powerful. And I really wanted to talk to you today, Vida, because I want people to understand and know that this is a possibility to help them. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
You're very welcome. Good morning, Lilia. Lovely to talk to you. Yeah, that was a powerful retreat. And yeah, the family constellations element of it astounds me as well. Still, after all these years, completely every single time just blows me away. It's incredible.
So how can you explain it to somebody? Because the thing is, there's so many modalities out there, you know, and a lot of people are searching now. And I think a lot of people, certainly within the idea of the family, we understand that a lot of our triggers come from members of our family. A lot of our pain, you know, whether it's conscious or unconscious pain, can come from our family members. And so can you sort of describe it in layman's terms, what it is that family constellations actually does?
Okay, I will do my very best, but I can't promise. This is always, anyone in the family constellations world, this is always a funny question because it's kind of impossible to explain how it works. I've just done a 3-month training and it still wasn't enough time. So I will try and be as concise as possible here. I think there's two sides to it. One is what we're doing when we're doing the work, and the other is how that works. So the how that works part, I can't really explain because that's phenomenological. But what I'll tell you is what we're looking for in terms of the formula in this work. So if you think of the family system or any system, this is basically systemic therapy. So we're looking for what has been taken out or what's been excluded. So if you think of a system as a whole, and it needs every single part of that system to be there for it to be in balance. Now, if you take one part of that system out, the whole rest of it is affected. So what's happened in our family systems over the years is that things have been excluded, usually painful things. So maybe secrets or mostly grief, shame, guilt, pain, you know, all of those low vibrational. Usually, I think our ancestors, they kind of just had that mentality of just get on with it. And a lot of the time, history didn't really allow them to go through expressing these emotions. So quite often they thought, oh, I'll just take it to the grave with me and then no one else will have to know about it or deal with it. But that really is not the case, because what's excluded doesn't disappear. So you'll find today that in your system, in your family, or even your relationships or your health or your work, you will be playing out patterns that you've got no idea of that came from previous generations. So if you think of a victim and a perpetrator dynamic, there will be, you could find them guaranteed right now, you could find a victim perpetrator dynamic within you and your siblings, you and your partner or ex-partners, you and your parents, or your parents with each other, your parents and their parents, you know, so we've always got these dynamics. So what we do in this work is we go back and trace back where it came from so that you don't have to live that story anymore. We're living other people's stories without knowing because they couldn't look at them, they couldn't look at their pain. So we do it for them.
Yes, I think you know, in the West, we really kind of ignore the ancestral thing, and we even quite often ignore our own parents. So because it is too painful, or because we simply don't understand. And I think that was, you know, I when I was observing you so beautifully and brilliantly, may I say, helping and facilitating people, I could see that you were feeling it, because it's invisible, right? A lot of what's going on is invisible. And you only know that it's worked because of how you feel. and nobody else can really give you any external, notification like that's worked. You know it, and you're tuning into people and sensing, and you'll just keep going until the ball of string is completely unraveled. And that's one of the most powerful things. I think it's letting go. People are letting go, but they're not really having to consciously feel the pain the way I would teach it, feel it and let it go. So it's changing the story or shifting the perception of the story. And I love the way you said that, where people are taken out for, can you talk about that, about why people get taken out and how that affects the whole system?
Yes, of course. I'll list a few categories that are quite obvious ones to work with. So usually if someone's done something wrong or what's classed as bad at the time, so it can be things like pregnancy before marriage, or there's often a lot of, sadly, there's often a lot of abuse in our ancestral lines that they didn't really talk about. So that could be violent domestic abuse or sexual abuse. Then there's a huge amount being carried from war. So the trauma of war that was just kind of put to the side, the survivors, or even the ones that were lost. So there's that bereavement and that grief of the ones that were lost. There is an issue when people have to leave their culture generations back, if someone had to leave their country or their culture. Things like abortion, miscarriage, premature death, especially of a child, which is very common, and death of a parent. It could be something as simple as an illness, and one of your ancestors lost their parent when they were young. They didn't have the parent there. It doesn't always have to be a gruesome secret story, but then there are things like adoption and if you have split families, like second families with children, first wife, second wife. So there are loads and loads and loads of dynamics where either people or events are excluded, even things like alcoholism, gambling, and the big one, murder. We're not all the children of the victims. We're also the children of the perpetrators. So when someone takes someone else's life, it bonds them in a way that's bigger than blood, bigger than family. So when they exclude what happened, when they exclude the other one, the victim, any kind of exclusion just builds and builds and builds, and it comes back in the next generations trying to be seen. So we start playing out these other people's stories because of what was excluded. So what we're doing in the constellation is we're bringing that exclusion and giving it its place. So if we feel that we maybe don't like one of our siblings, or we don't get on very well, or we don't like our partner sometimes, or we don't like our parents, naturally what we do is try to move away from them. Say you've got a toxic relationship, you try to move away from it for self-preservation. But actually, what we need to do is go closer to it before we can move away from it. So we need to move away from it with honor and respect for what it is before we can go. Otherwise, we're excluding it and rejecting it, and then it grows and grows in its power. So I'll talk very briefly about the consciences. There's two types of consciences that's basically governing us at the moment. So we've got our own personal conscience. So for example, what is it that makes you as Lilia feel excuse me, guilty, or feel rewarded, or feel like something's been good or something's been bad? It's your personal conscience, your idea of right and wrong, and that has been impacted by everything around you, your parents, where you were born, your school, societies, religions, all that kind of thing. So that you're aware of, because when you feel guilty, you get those feelings inside. Oh, I don't feel good about that, or I do feel good about that. But the collective conscience, which is the conscience of your whole family system, is huge and invisible. So you have awareness of your own personal conscience, you have no awareness of all of the things that have happened before you that trundle on, and this collective conscience that holds all of these ideas of right doing and wrongdoing and guilt and innocence and blame, and it's trying to balance out those things. So it comes to you become part of it, and then you do your little job in that system to try and balance out all those things that weren't balanced from before you. So you'll play a victim, you'll play a perpetrator, you'll identify with someone else's story from before you, and you've no idea that it's happening. It's huge and it's invisible. So yeah, in this work, we're working with that collective conscience of your family, where the loyalties are, the things that are controlling, in a sense, trying to be seen. And we let those things be seen without any judgment. It's really important that there's no judgment. Even what we would class as a very awful situation with a very clear perpetrator, they still have to have their place. And when they're given their place, whoa, you feel it, everything just drops in and everything moves into balance, and then it impacts everyday life.
Yeah, there was two exercises in particular that I want to talk about because they kind of stuck out to me as, wow. One was when we were put into groups of 4. So one, you played yourself, then the next woman played, because it was an all-woman group we were working with. I know it's men can do it too, but on that particular retreat, it was all women. So then there was your mum, your gran, and your great-gran, and you gave us a little bit of cloth, and that was to represent everything that we've been carrying from our ancestors. And we then, so symbolically, were to give it back. And initially I thought, really?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, because again, I think I'm really seeing now is when you put the body through the motions, the mind gets it. And I think, that as you said earlier, how do you describe it? It's happening on almost like a multi-dimensional level. And you don't need to understand it, because when you do the exercise, you feel it. And all these women, the tears and the pain and the grief and the relief eventually that comes through from handing back what you were carrying, which is no longer yours and was never yours to carry, but now we're in this shift in consciousness we're starting to see. So there's that symbology of that exercise, which was really powerful. And seeing your ancestors represented by another human being. So that was really cool. But the other one I think that's very helpful for people that are in a lot of pain is when you get when they watch and you get the people there, because that happened for one of the girls there to play the different parts of the story. So I can't remember what they actually were, but say, for example, your mother, your father, or a neighbour, or whoever it was that was in the story that that you're finding difficult to manage or deal with or see in a different light. So that takes you completely out of it. And then, so you don't have to tell your story in any way. You just sit and watch and see all the different angles to it, which I thought, what a beautiful way to resolve and to help people see. I think you said, I can't remember your exact words, but it was something along the lines of, can you allow them their right to be here too? And that really struck to me as well, because there's some people you just wish weren't here. But they are. They are. And you actually realise what they have as much right to be here as you do, even if they're not behaving in a way. So can you talk about, explain that second exercise to people, how it would, if somebody's carrying a horrible, painful burden, how that can help?
Yes. This is the trickier bit to explain, how that part works. But yes, it's magical. It's phenomenological. It's a field, and when we're in that field, we don't have to do anything. We don't need any special skills. We don't need any experience. But when we're in that field and we set the intention to represent somebody's ancestor, family member, every single time, you will start to feel the feelings of that person. Now, in what depth you feel them is different for everyone. You know, some people feel a huge amount, and some people will feel it as simply as change of temperature in their body or a tightness in parts of their body. And I will guide them to that tells me certain things as a facilitator. So what I'm looking for at the beginning is where everyone is situated next to each other. So yeah, if you're that person and we're doing the session for you, and you pick 4 other people in the room, someone is going to represent you, someone's going to represent each of your parents, and the other one might represent, I don't know, a sibling or the issue that you want to look at. You might have a sore foot, and that person will be representing your sore foot, or your anxiety, or your partner, or anything at all that you want that wants to be looked at. Anything. It doesn't have to be a physical person.
Yes, I forgot about that.
And automatically, they will all start to feel the feelings of what it is that they're representing. So it's very fast. It's one of the fastest modalities I've ever experienced to just boom, shift whatever it is that's blocking. What is also amazing about it is that you don't actually have to know in your mind what it is that's happened, what it is that needs to be fixed, what it is that needs to be balanced. And you don't even have to do the work. So the other people do it for you. And what's even more beautiful is that those people, it's not just a selfless thing where they're going to help you with your family story, because those people, there's no coincidence who it is that's representing which role, because they also receive a healing from their role, because it will link to something in their family system as well every single time. So everyone that's there receives a beautiful gift for themselves and for their ancestors. So yeah, I just want to go back one more time and say there is no need for anyone to know any of these stories from the ancestral line. You can just come and say, I have this pain in my body and I don't know why and I can't get rid of it. And then the constellation takes us and shows us where it's coming from, what it is that's blocked. We put it back in order, and then it impacts your life and clears. Now, whether that story that comes up is 100% accurate or 90% accurate, it really doesn't matter. The story doesn't matter, because what we're looking at is at the beginning, you had a blockage, you had an issue, and at the end, everything's in balance. So it's quite magical.
Yeah, it truly is. And really the best thing, the reason I've been hogging you for all week to do this podcast was because, I really feel, particularly right now, it's a very powerful, simple, beautiful, and, as a collective to do this with other women, I can't recommend it highly enough. And also I know that you're moving. And so we've got limited time left. I mean, I'm sure there's other brilliant therapists as well, but we have a retreat coming up at Barmoloch, which I believe is full now, is it?
Yes, it's full. Yep.
You're going to do another one before you go?
We do have a waiting list. I'm not sure that I'll be doing another one, but I'm waiting on my visa approval. So, these things can take their time. If it does take a lot longer, there may be another one. But if it comes through, then I will be going. But I've been working, like the last year and a half online, doing constellations online. So I will continue to do that. I do it in groups online. So yeah, that will continue.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So explain to us how that works and who's going to benefit, who's coming to you. And, I know that you do the online, because now that I'm thinking about it, I've seen the Zoom links that you've sent. So who who that's listening to the podcast, you know, who really are the main people that are coming towards this therapy? And
well, something incredible is happening whereas before this kind of, I think maybe with any modality, this was seemed to be for people that were, I don't know, that you would call maybe more open-minded or experimental. But now I've noticed more recently that so many more people who've never done anything like this before are contacting and saying, yeah, I feel drawn to this. And I have an in-person event happening tomorrow, and we have like maybe 22 people coming, and I've had to close it as fully booked. So it's something's changing. And yeah, there are a lot of family constellations facilitators around the UK, but until like 5 years ago, I had no clue where they were, and I had to hunt for them. You know, I had to like really do Google searches and hunt for people. But now it seems to be moving up to be. The reason I started training in this was with the hope that I would be able to bring it into schools, so the education system and the penal system, so prisons, and for rehabilitation. So basically for people that are really suffering and it's having a huge impact in their life. And this is incredible for those types of things. That's my wish, that one day we're using this modality, because it's very fast and it's very simple, and anyone can do it. So yeah, I would say to anyone that has any kind of issue to give this a try.
Well, after the last retreat, when I went back to work, I was still kind of buzzing about it, and I was talking to this gentleman who was having his haircut, and he said, and I thought, I don't know how this will land. He's a gentleman about my age, but I was still kind of like really excited about what I'd seen. And he said, that's what they should be teaching in schools, you know, because that is what children need, is to unravel all the familial stuff so that they can then...
Or even to just be connected to where you came from. I think especially in the UK, I noticed that we are really separate from our families and our ancestors. I mean, this work was developed by Bert Hellinger. He was a German priest, and he went, a Catholic missionary, and he went to work with the Zulu, and he noticed that they know who they are for 10 generations back. And if you think about us, how far back do we know? Like maybe our grandparents. I've worked with people who don't even know the names of their grandparents, but maybe great grandparents. But could you go 10 generations back and know about every single one of them, know their names, who they were, what they did, and they were the son of, the son of, the son of. So this work, this is what I'm very passionate about. A lot of facilitators will work with this more as a psychotherapy, like a therapy, you know, it's quite clinical. And that's wonderful. It works. It always works. For me, I'm very, very much about connection to the ancestors, and not only clearing our issue by giving it back to them, but also connecting with them, being proud of where you came from, being compassionate for them, seeing what we're carrying for them, but then, you know, giving it back to them. But when we go forward with our lives, they're also behind us, because we're the sum total of everyone that came before us. So when you're going forward, you're not dragging them with you and all of their woes and their worries and the weight, but you're being propelled forward by their love, because you're getting to do what they couldn't do. Every single generation gets closer to the ideas of what your ancestors couldn't do, and they struggled to survive for us to be here. So if we can bow to our ancestors with honor and thanks and gratitude for being here, and take all of the gifts from them, all of their strengths, their survivals, their skills, their everything, then wow, that's like, instead of a backpack of heavy weight to carry, that's like an air balloon that's like woohoo, you know. So I work a lot with those the love of the ancestors. So it's not just a clinical process of giving back and unburdening, it's also like really loving where you came from.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And, you know, I lost my mum a couple of years ago and now realise there's things that I will never know because she's not there to answer these questions. And, you know, I think, well, there's a lot of changes we have to make in Western society, but certainly that back to the roots and where we came from, and appreciation and gratitude, which we know is very high vibrational. So that's fantastic. I think that's going to give people a great overview, and I know that people will be intrigued and interested as maybe how it could help them or some friends. So I'll put your contact details on the link to the podcast, and then if another retreat comes up, or if anybody wants to put their name in the waiting list and actively create, if we've got, obviously if there's enough people, I'm sure you'd be happy to come and run another retreat. Am I right?
Yes, if time allows, I'm always happy. This work is incredible. As an aside from the family constellations, working with women, especially at this time, for us to go back to that wisdom that we carry within us, it's so powerful, it's so healing, and it's so needed right now, and it's an absolute gift to do this work. What I would say is with the constellations, when I'm working online, I invite anyone that's interested to come and join for free. So you can come be one of those representatives of someone's family. And even if you don't want to do your own issue, if you don't want to do your own constellation, there is a bit of a waiting list for people that want to do their own issue. So if you do think you do, let me know in advance, because it will be a while away. But every time we're doing these online sessions, anyone that wants to come and just have a look, see what it is that's going on, because it really is an experiential thing. It's so impossible to put into words. You really have to experience it to understand. So anyone that has a little bit of interest, it'll take a couple of hours, and I have a WhatsApp group. So yeah, you can contact me if you want to be added to the group, and it will tell you when the sessions are.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I think that's a lot clearer. I'll get this out so that people can. My plan was to do the podcast so we could fill the retreat, but you beat me to it.
I know, that's incredible. Everything's just filling up. It's magical. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lilia.
And I'm really, really excited to see you again and get more wisdom. And
get in that river, that freezing cold river.
Oh my God, I tell you right now, it is an ice bath. It's amazing, amazing. So listen, huge love, and I'll see you really soon. And thank you again.
Thank you, darling. You take care.
Wow.
Bye-bye.